Hi everyone, welcome back. In a surprising turn of events this week, President Trump hosted a high-level Africa summit at the White House. Without a doubt, this may have been organized as a similar event to the annual Africa summit hosted by Russia or the AWKWARDNESS summit hosted by China, also on an annual basis. So the race for Africa may officially be on the table now. Well, not so much for Africa, of course, but for its critical resources, as African nations, one after another, have been pushing France and other previously colonial powers out of its territory. They want to regain sovereignty and they want to stop being exploited. At the White House this week, leaders from Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal have gathered for lunch with Trump. But this is not a symbolic photo op. Behind the handshakes and smiles lies a very real geopolitical game, one centered on critical minerals, on migration, and America's strategic tug-of-war with China and with Russia on the African continent. Now, before we get into the details, I think a bit of humor won't hurt here. Of course, this is not really funny, it's actually very sad. This is embarrassing. In a completely embarrassing moment, Donald Trump told the Liberian president, and I will quote here, he said, "You speak such beautiful English. Where did you learn to speak English so beautifully?" Even though English is the national language of Liberia. And on top of that, the United States president may have forgotten that Liberia is a state that was created by the Americans. It was created by the American Colonization Society in 1822 with the goal of establishing a colony in West Africa for free African Americans whom they helped travel back at that time. Now watch a clip.
I want to thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you. And such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where?
Yes, sir.
In Liberia.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting. It's beautiful English.
Sure.
That speaks volumes, doesn't it? Especially if you know the history of Liberia and the role of Western powers in not only establishing but also running the state. While the Trump administration had previously rolled back aid, tightened visa rules, and issued travel bans on African nations, it's now extending an olive branch to 5 strategically chosen countries in Central and West Africa. Why? Well, there's one word that will help answer that question: minerals.
Maybe we're going to have to go a little bit quicker than this because we have a whole schedule. If I could just say it's, your name and your country would be great. Thank you, please.
Muito obrigado, Sr. Presidente Trump.
These nations may have small economies, but beneath their soil lie some of the world's most valuable resources. And of course, the United States wants a cut of it. It's manganese, cobalt, iron ore, even lithium, all essential to the tech that we use every single day, from smartphones to electric vehicles. Trump's Africa policy seems to be embracing a motto that's been floating around Washington for years: trade, not aid. The United States sees that it's losing its grip on Africa, and since Russia and China do not try to meddle in internal affairs of African nations, which is, of course, very attractive for these African nations, the latter naturally side with Russia and China. And so that shift in foreign policy in Africa is being driven by a person named Masad Boulos, who is Trump's Africa advisor and also the father-in-law of Tiffany Trump. Boulos has reportedly held broker deals in the region, including peace talks between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. These moves could open up access to more mineral-rich zones which were previously thought to be inaccessible due to political instability in the region. So why these 5 countries specifically? That is a very important question. Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal may not be heavyweights on the world stage, but what they do offer is potential. China does not have very strong ties established with them just yet, unlike Zambia, unlike Angola or the DRC, where Beijing is engaged in mining and building infrastructure for the population of these nations. That makes these countries prime real estate for U.S. investment now, assuming American companies are indeed willing to take the risk, since the United States policy in the region, its success or its failure, will determine how profitable those investments might be. But that's the catch. Many of these nations sit within or near the Sahel region, a belt of instability that is plagued by jihadist violence. As you may know, Mali filed a court complaint not too long ago indicating that the West was sponsoring jihadists while they were also helping Mali fight them. Most Western companies have been reluctant to commit to long-term operations there, so unless security improves, as the Sahel is increasingly engaging Russia to provide security and military assistance, U.S. private sector interests may not follow Washington's diplomatic charm offensive. And security is a growing concern. The U.S. military has already been kicked out of key parts of the Sahel. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have kicked out American and French troops, choosing to partner with Russia instead. So this summit isn't just about business, it's about locking in strategic partnerships before the situation deteriorates any further for the United States as its influence in the region declines. But there's another piece to the puzzle here: migration. African migration to the United States through the Mexican border has been rising, especially from Senegal and Mauritania. The Trump administration is looking at options to deport migrants, including sending them to third-party African nations. This could explain why these countries were invited now, in an attempt to build political goodwill or even cut deals behind the scenes to facilitate future deportations or tighten border cooperation. Meanwhile, the United States has ramped up travel restrictions on African nations, citing visa overstay rates and security vetting issues. Just last month, the Senegalese women's basketball team was denied visas for a U.S. training camp. It is a complex relationship, one where diplomacy, migration policy, and public perception are all tightly interwoven. Despite the warm rhetoric around business opportunities, Trump's Africa policy isn't without backlash. His administration slashed foreign aid budgets, triggering fears of humanitarian fallout. The humanitarian crisis that was triggered by years of violence and conflict. A study published in The Lancet suggests these cuts could result in over 14 million additional deaths by 2030. Add to that the new tariff hikes affecting African exports, and critics argue that the United States is giving with one hand while taking with the other. African Union officials have openly questioned how the United States can talk about partnerships while imposing abusive trade and visa policies. Many remember the 2018 scandal when Trump allegedly referred to African nations as, and let's put this diplomatically for YouTube's sake, not so great countries. And you can actually look up the exact word that Trump, the president of the United States at the time, used when referring to these nations. That legacy still casts a shadow over current efforts, no matter how polished the summit's press release sounds. It very well could just be smoke and mirrors, and African leaders understand that. The Liberian delegation left reportedly very, very unsatisfied and humiliated. Let's take Gabon, for example. It's one of the 5 nations at the summit and now the site of a new US-backed mining project, the Banio Potash mine in Mayomba. The United States International Development Finance Corporation just announced that it would fund development at the site. It is part of a broader strategy to reduce Gabon's reliance on imports and to open the door to deeper U.S. business ties, specifically in mining. So if successful, this could be a model for how the United States wants to engage with Africa moving forward, of course, while securing resources that are vital to American industries. But for that model to succeed, Washington needs to overcome decades of mistrust and to prove that it is in for a long haul, not just for headline-grabbing summits, and also not just to exploit Africa, but to empower its nations to grow economically and to address a wide range of security issues, economic challenges, and social opportunities that exist there. So what is Trump's surprise Africa summit really trying to achieve? This is a high-stakes bet on minerals, on migration, and military strategy, all under the banner of America First. Whether it leads to real partnerships or just another round of empty promises depends on what happens after the gathering. The world is definitely watching, and so is China and Russia, who are very much welcomed by many African states as they seek to diversify risks and to engage with multiple trade, investment, and security partners. Now, I hope this quick video was interesting. If that's the case, show your support. Like, subscribe, and share. It goes a long way. Support my work on Substack and Patreon. You will find them linked in the description below. I would love to see you there, and I look forward to seeing you back here again soon. Bye for now.